my channel. If you're new here, I make videos about books and Harry Potter because I love them both. So today's video is a really highly requested one. I talk a lot about the fact that I really love retellings, and particularly book retellings, because they're essentially a bit like fan fiction. You have someone that writes a different perspective or a different story or adds something to a world that someone else has already kind of built the foundations for, which I think is really cool. I love it. I love retellings. I read a lot of retellings and I have a lot of retellings. I talk about that a lot in book hauls and wrap-ups and all that kind of thing, and I get asked a lot to talk about my favourite retellings and to recommend some. I have been a bit hesitant to do so before this for a while because I read a lot of ones that I know lots of people already know about. Kind of worried I'd make a video and people would be like, we know about all of these books. Like, everyone talks about these books, because I get quite a lot of my recommendations from BookTube. Just as a warning, that's why this video has been put off for a while, because I just worry that I am just going to be making the same video. But these are some retellings that I would definitely recommend and that I want you all to read, and I think are really good and really clever and really good ways of adapting those stories. So there's the disclaimer as to why that video has taken a while to come out, but let's get into it. Okay, so the first one that we are going to talk about is the Dorothy Must Die series by Danielle Page. This is the first one in the series. It's called Dorothy Must Die, and this is about a girl called Amy Gum who finds herself in Oz, and she basically finds out that Dorothy has gone a bit mad on all of the power that she has been given. So she ends up having to become Dorothy's assassin, and she has to take out the Tin Man, the Lion, the Scarecrow, and Dorothy herself to bring back order and restore Oz to what it once was. I love this series. I'm yet to read the final book in this series, but the rest of the books are absolutely incredible and I love them a lot, and I just think it's a really fun, clever story and plays a lot on different perspectives of Oz, and that who's bad might not necessarily be and who's good might not necessarily be, and I just think it's a really clever retelling. It's one of my favourite series and I love it a lot. Then let's just stick on the Wizard of Oz theme because we're here now. We have Wicked by Gregory Maguire. This is the book that inspired the musical of the same name. A musical is my favourite musical. I've seen it in London and on Broadway because I love it so much. And this is essentially the untold stories of the witches of Oz. So what happened before the story that we know. So again, it's the Wizard of Oz retelling, but an entirely different perspective, because Dorothy Must Die is set afterwards. This is set before. This is set before the story that we know, before we know who to be good and who to be bad and what actually went down, which I think is really interesting. When I first saw the musical, I was absolutely blown away and absolutely awed by it, so this is definitely one that I always tell people to either read or go and see because it's absolutely brilliant. Then we have Lost Boy by Christina Henry, and this is probably the most recent one I've read, and this is a Peter Pan retelling, and this is from the perspective of Captain Hook, and before kind of he became Captain Hook and going to Neverland with Peter, and that he felt like, you know, Peter was this amazing person that brought him to this amazing place, but what actually happened and what actually went down with that, which I think is really cool, and I really love the different takes on it because the original version of Peter Pan is quite dark, so I like seeing retellings that are quite similar to that version other than the Disney version, even though I do love the Disney version. But yeah, this is really good, and I think it stays a bit more true to the original tale of Peter Pan and what happened beforehand, and it's really interesting to read a book in the perspective of the villain, in this case Captain Hook, or who we perceive to be the villain and who we're told is the villain throughout the original story. It's good to see a different perspective. Then we have Heartless by Marissa Meyer, which this is not the actual cover. The actual cover looks like this. I got sent an ARC. This is the ARC. And this is a story focusing on the Queen of Hearts. So this time we are venturing into the Alice in Wonderland world, one of my favourite worlds. I love that book so much and I love retellings that surround it. So this focuses on the Queen of Hearts when she was just a girl in love and before she was the Queen of Hearts, and what happened to make her become the Queen of Hearts. Again, absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really interesting take on Alice in Wonderland and what happened beforehand, and again we get to see a different perspective of a different character from that story, and again it's absolutely wonderful. I definitely recommend it. Then we have the first book in a series that I read this year, and that is Cinder, also by Marissa Meyer. Cinder is the first book in a 4-book series. There is also 2 smaller books that go along with those 4 books that are short novellas and short stories. So these are sci-fi retellings of stories that we know. So this is of Cinderella, and Cinder is actually part human, part cyborg. And this is an absolutely incredible retelling series, even to the tiniest little details. There is stuff in this, and it's really cool to see how it links. There is this one, then there is Scarlet, which is Little Red Riding Hood, which is also really good. Then there is Cress, which is a Rapunzel retelling, and then there is Winter, which is a Snow White retelling. Then there is 2, like I said, 2 short books with like short stories and stuff. This is genuinely one of my favourite series. I loved reading this series so much. It was so good, and it's definitely one of my favourite retellings, so it's one I would definitely recommend. Then I wanted to mention this one, and that is Once Upon a Time Red's Untold Tale by Wendy Tolliver. Now this book is actually based on the TV series Once Upon a Time. I'm talking about this book because I read this book and I love it, and it's Little Red Riding Hood and stories surrounding her, which I think is really interesting because, again, different retellings, and she's someone who I haven't read that many retellings about, so it's really good to have read this and to experience that. But I also want to talk about Once Upon a Time, and I don't really know about the season that's coming because there's been loads of changes in like casting and stuff. The actual show, I really love that take on retellings as well and how they've done that, and this book really does represent and show how they've done those changes, and I really enjoyed reading this book as a companion to the show because I just think that whole thing and how they've taken these characters and how they've interpreted them is so good. Then we have Stealing Snow, also by Danielle Page, who did the Dorothy Must Die book. This is a retelling of the Snow Queen, and it focuses on Snow, who does not remember her life before being in the psychiatric hospital that she is in. But then the love of her life disappears in the middle of the night, and she has to follow him into this world, this kind of like magical frozen world and that kind of thing. Yeah, this is another one which I would definitely recommend. I love Danielle Page. I love how she does her retellings and how she brings to life the stories that haven't been kind of told for a while, and how she adapts them and how we get different perspectives from different characters. Then we have a girl called Owl, and I don't know if this is like a retelling. This is also the ARC version, the cover doesn't look like this, but it's kind of the story of Jack Frost, but it's from a girl who finds out that she is actually his daughter. So she finds out that she's got these powers and stuff. So I don't know if it's necessarily like a retelling of the story of Jack Frost, but it's kind of the story of Jack Frost added to and played upon and loads of stuff with it. So yeah, this is another one that's really good. This is considered a middle grade novel, but it is absolutely wonderful and I would recommend it for anyone. Then we have Winter Song by S.J. Jones, and this is a book that I also read this year, and it is a retelling of Labyrinth. It is kind of based on that. It focuses on Lyselle, who her whole life she's heard these tales of the Goblin King, but then her sister is actually taken by him and she has to go and find her. And this is really clever. There's the theme of music throughout this book, which is really well done. The story is well done. I like how they took the elements that are in Labyrinth and kind of put them in here, but then also how it's got its own kind of originality and stuff to it. And this is another one which I would definitely recommend. This is one that I don't think you would be very aware that it was a retelling unless you knew it was a retelling. So this is kind of different with the other ones because they're quite obvious. Then we have A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. There are lots of things wrong with Sarah J Maas's books. They're not kind of the best diverse books, and you know, there's some stuff in them. This was the first Sarah J Maas book I read, and when I first read it I was absolutely in love with it. I'm very aware of the kind of issues surrounding it, but I still think that the retelling, that the actual story and how it retells the story is good. And this is based on Beauty and the Beast, so it focuses on Feyre, and she is a huntress and she accidentally kills one of the kind of high fae people. Her kind of punishment for doing that is that she has to go and live in one of the fae courts with the high fae Tamlin, so it's kind of Beauty and the Beast. After this book it stops kind of being that because the second book throws everything all on its head, but this one is, you can really kind of see those similarities between this and Beauty and the Beast, and it's something that I did really enjoy when I first read it. And finally we have another book which I read quite recently, and that is The Wrath of the Dawn by Renée Ahdieh. This book is a retelling of 1001 Nights, which is also known as Arabian Nights, and that's been adapted so many times with so many different tales and stories and in different forms, but this is one version of that. Actually, I did not know this was a retelling when I first started reading it. It wasn't until I did some research on it. And this focuses on the ruler of Khorasan, Khalid, and he takes a new bride every night, and by dawn that bride is dead, and it focuses on Shahrazad, who volunteers to be his next bride to kind of figure out what's going on and to get revenge from the fact that one of her friends was killed. And it's everything that gets explored there. This is another one which I really loved. I think it's really good. I'm really looking forward to reading the second one in the series as well. So yeah, so those are just some retellings that I really like and think are really good, and are books that I have enjoyed and think that the retellings have been done really well and have explored really interesting areas of the stories that we already know. I probably will make another one of these videos at some point, like a part 2, because I'm always reading retellings and I've got a couple on my TBR list which I will want to talk about if I enjoy them. I hoped that you didn't know every single book, or there was something in this that you did find interesting. Yeah, I hope that you liked this video. I'd love to know your retelling recommendations down below, because like I said, I'm always looking for them. I really love them. If you want to be here, then I make videos a couple of times a week, so if you'd like to stick around and join us, then you can press the subscribe button down there, and also the little bell for any notifications. And as usual, all my other social medias will be in the description. Run on the Road on everything, and my website is renontheroad.com. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're doing really well, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!